Practice, exercise, and don't worry about anything. As a rule, people are out to make the same mistakes twice if they behave in such a way, and it hurts badly. You know this, right? If you don't know what to do, just stop and do nothing. You must make a lifelong decision. You are either an actor in this theater of life, in this movie, or you are the director. The whole universe with myriads of manifestations and laws, it is right inside you because your body is a microcosm. The space will take shape in such a way that it gives you the opportunity to practice. If someone encounters difficulties with the external world or their social life and wants to practice, but they don't manage to due to one or another obstacle, their work might stop them from doing so, or their relatives are against it, or whatever. This suggests that inwardly, you are undecided or have not properly expressed your intention. Your target is to resolutely declare to the space around you that from this very moment, you have embarked on the path of spiritual transformation. And your goal, the highest goal, the mono-idea, the mono-target, if you like, is God realization. And then your whole life is spent in the achievement of this goal. Everything you need to achieve this goal will be given to you by the universe. You don't have to worry. The necessary amount of money, the necessary amount of knowledge and opportunities. All you need is your aspiration and nothing else. For our part, back in the day when all of this started, we used to practice in a place where it was virtually impossible to meditate at all. During military operations, we practiced when it seemed impossible to engage in spiritual practice because we had to survive, make money somehow and what have you. We had all the time in the world. But here's what I did. I made sure I never left home without practicing first. If I had to leave early for work, I'd get up earlier. When I got home from work late, I'd go to bed later. But I'd always do 2 hours of daily practice in the morning and in the evening. And I'd also try to squeeze in a bit more practice during the day. Once again, let me stress that nowadays, you have fantastic opportunities. You have the knowledge. I acquired this knowledge bit by bit in my own time when there was no internet, no mobile phones, no means of communicating other than personal interaction and help from the above. And all this knowledge is for you. We, the masters, came along and imparted their knowledge, saying that we were like an open book for you. You are one of us, and we will always give to you and support you. Practice, exercise, and don't worry about anything. This was a moment of epiphany. I'm sharing my personal experience as I can't speak to the experiences of others. That would be unfair. I'm doing it so you can be inspired. A little. Kernel of wisdom, if you will. We will move on to advanced techniques shortly after. So you can be inspired and realize that you have excellent opportunities. That in today's world there are all the necessary sources, the requisite knowledge, means of communication, and so on. But for some reason, the mind has a mind of its own. In fact, the mind has always been influenced by the internal world. We must understand that if you live by the mind, you are being used. You are always immediately entering a void, even if it's the right thought. As a rule, the right thought intuitively comes to the fore and disappears. It must therefore be teased out. After that, a switch to the ordinary mind occurs. It is the first thought, albeit it's hard to even call it a thought. It's like an idea, and this idea takes time to tease out. If you miss it, don't try chasing after it, because you will start thinking. You will start trying to analyze, and immediately fall into a flawed state, because the judgment process is already happening. If you feel that something is affecting you and you can't put your finger on what it is, but you feel it all the same, some sort of unpleasant feeling, be aware that these are vibrations of the internal world, which interacts with this society. There's nothing bad about this, because you are always protected by the Holy Spirit. You don't need to worry, nothing is going to happen to you. Even if it influences your body to some extent, it means that you lack faith. Faith must be cultivated by practice. You have faith, but it must be manifested. Yesterday I said that faith is a personal experience. Someone who has acquired qualities has received personal experience. He doesn't need to believe. This is the next stage. In consolidating all knowledge, in practicing Kriya techniques, you are exercising the laws of the whole universe which vibrate in you. The whole universe with myriads of manifestations and laws, it is right inside you because your body is a microcosm. But if you forget about it, you can fall either into falsehood or into some other states of fear that affect you, shaking your spiritual core. And commonly it is done through the mind. There are no other portals, there are no other chances, there are no ways to take you out of yourself, except through the mind. It is possible if you live by your mind, but if your mind is focused on the divine, and it stays vigilant and you monitor it, you'll think only of the good. This should become a good habit. You listen and communicate with good-natured people. If it is difficult for you at the beginning, avoid meeting people who stir up negative feelings in you. Because this quality inside you is a mirror. Generally speaking, the whole world is a mirror. You meet precisely those people who never fail to show you who you are inside, or certain peculiarities or traits. This does not mean that they are bad people, but there is something about them that will end up latching onto you from within. This mirroring must be worked out within you. As soon as you accept it, your attitude will change instantly. But at the initial stage, when you have not yet acquired the stability that you might think you have acquired, try to avoid meeting with such people. Try to listen only to the positive, to see or watch only the good. Avoid various videos that can shake you up. And, as the phrase goes, label unnecessary programs as such in the neurons, because the mirroring of neurons works perfectly. Even if you have to look at something that you find outrageous due to the circumstances or something that you don't like, read the mantra. Be mindful that everything is provided by God, and that now you are just perceiving it, going through a certain stage. If you are annoyed by your loved ones, and people as a rule do tend to get more easily annoyed by them, because it's easier to sever ties or solve issues with a stranger than with your loved ones, because you try to show and demonstrate your worth. You try to prove that you are right. Stop doing it. Keep loving and treating your loved ones and everyone else the right way. Their attitude to you is not important. It is your attitude towards them that matters. In this case, karma does not unite. Here is a simple example. If you get insulted, you become hooked on it. You immediately share karma with this person. Got it? You didn't respond, but it latched onto you. This person's karma is on you, and your karma is on this person. You united because you reacted. If you had realized it at that moment, it would have worked itself out and nothing would have come of it. But if you didn't, then be warned. You're setting yourself up to make the same mistake again the next evening. As a rule, people are out to make the same mistakes twice if they behave in such a way, and it hurts badly. You know this, right? Here's an example for you. These mistakes are often repeated in order to work programs out. If you have worked it out, there is no need to punish you. There is no need to continue repeating this. Your task is to learn to accept the entire world as a manifestation of God. Therefore, in Kriya Yoga, we immediately set an affirmation that God has manifested Himself through everything. He is omnipresent in everything, and everything that happens, happens for good. A small example, it's this self-isolation, as it's called, these fears, the escalation of these fears that we had. If you realize that this was for the greater good, then this was a huge leap forward. And indeed it was for the greater good. You now have the opportunity to focus on you for self-inquiry. That's why in unifying meditations, I have always talked about using this opportunity. It's a good vacation, a good pause for all processes. If you don't know what to do, just stop and do nothing. Enter the divine cave and remain in an idle state. The mind will say, well, all right, I've now entered the divine cave, even though He is not present. What's next then? And then nothing comes. You just need to be there and assert your presence. No thoughts, no comprehension, no attempts to understand anything, or to simulate scenarios. This is all a deception of the mind. It will always attempt to pull you out of yourself. The task is to remain in the divine cave and wait. All the techniques that we practice with you, all the energizing techniques as well as transformations and advanced techniques are needed so you can immerse yourself. You can immerse your consciousness in the divine cave, and after some time shall reveal itself to be limitless once your mind is at ease, when your prana ceases to be so active. It is active now. It is going into the outside world. In the outside world, prana, this vital force, is lost. You lose life force. Right now, while listening to me, try to be in the divine cave, feeling the body, because the divine power goes to where your attention is. If you watch a show, you feed off of the TV show. When you forget who you are and what you are watching, when you forget that this is a movie you're watching and the actors are not real. They are real as an idea at the moment, but they do not interact with you other than that you immerse your mind there. Thus you lose energy. But when you're in the divine cave and conscious of this process, focus on what you are watching or doing. That is, there is a relationship present. There is interaction because there is an energy, an informational connection. Yet you do not lose life force the same way as you do when simply sleeping awake. Do you see what I mean? That is, your task is always to keep consciousness inside yourself. You must make a lifelong decision. You are either an actor in this theater of life, in this movie, or you are the director, or you are someone in the form of an actor, but who's forgotten their acting. When people forget that they are acting, they begin to suffer, because they dive into this role too much, leaving everything behind. But in fact, you can be very sincere. You can play this role sincerely, and always remember that you are not a part of this life. Therefore, Master Jesus, having played His role as divinely and sincerely as He could, once proclaimed that one should be in the world but not of this world. That is to say, you should in fact remember who you are but be in the world. So we are not escaping reality. Moreover, I am in favor of you starting families. Because a house husband or a housewife, i.e. a family person in general, is an ideal candidate to be manifested, and therefore can most quickly arrive at realization. If you feel within yourself that you are a recluse, a monk, you need to live in the world for some time in order to give yourself the opportunity. When you are really sure that you do not want to live in the world and you want to become a monk, remember that genuine monasticism is not behind the walls of a monastery, but to be in the world and not be influenced by it. It is the ability to remain in the world, to maintain a stable presence within it. That means a true monk is someone who lives right within the here and now, in the thick of the action, but does not get involved. Therefore, any person who finds a family can be a monk, but at the same time he lives a full, sound family life, where he prefers spiritual development together with his loved ones. That's how the world can change swiftly. A huge number of people who practice Kriya Yoga are already at this level, and so are you. You can always find a way to justify your actions by avoiding the problem. That's what the mind does. But when you are in the thick of action and you work it out, you transform much faster, provided that you are still practicing. Because when you practice, you have the ability to transform these events which are a part of life, a part of the manifestation of God, because our lives are directly the highest aspect of the presence of God, and we are all involved in it. Provided that we understand it. If you forget yourself, then these energies begin to pull you apart. Therefore, practice more, and then some. Vladimir Lenin once said, "Learn, learn more, learn forever." He was speaking about Kriya Yoga, by the way. All right. Now I will show you the sacred techniques that are not advisable to share with anyone. The program that I gave you yesterday and a part of today's program, 42 Kriyas in seated energization, you can practice with your friends and folks around you. But the advanced techniques of Kriya Yoga that I am about to teach now are very serious, and people who do not receive initiation at the seminar, at best, will not be able to do them. They will not work, and in the worst case, they can do some harm. To a greater extent, they will do emotional harm. People will simply say that all this does not work and turn away from yoga, from Kriya in particular, and you will bear karmic responsibility for the fact that a person simply did not truly get involved in it, despite you being the one who made them aware of it. Therefore, before you turn the preacher syndrome on, it is advisable not to do so. It is advisable to nip it in the bud. Learn to practice yourself. Take your time. The time will come, and God Himself will snap into action in such a way that when you sincerely want to share with a person what you are getting now, you will eventually do it. You can advise those close to you to read Autobiography of a Yogi, any book by Yogananda, any book of Sathya Sai Baba. You can tell them about seated energization, about the principles, and demonstrate the 42 Kriyas. Just be sincere and try to make sure that people are also sincere about the practice. It's still a teaching, it's still knowledge. Do not eviscerate this knowledge. You can show them all this, but it's advisable not to share progressive techniques.